Bum, bum, bum. We are live. Bum, bum, bum. Nothing but excitement here.
Mm-hmm.
Wilson will jump in when he shows up, I just said. We're just talking about the death of Steve Dillon. And we're saying, oh, yeah, I noticed it's 1 year since Neil Adams died.
Oh, it's been a year.
A bunch of people have posted. It's been a year. I saw it on Facebook. I think his family just did a interview with someone marking the 1 year anniversary, talking about their dad. So I didn't read it. I just glanced at it. But I've been reading that Neil Adams, Roy Thomas alter ego interviews. They've been fun. Not just the Roy Thomas part. There's a short one where Howard Chaykin interviews him, then a longer one where somebody else interviews him, and then another short one at the end where a story I'd forgotten about. I can't remember, where he did a story about the Vietnam War. I think he did it in like 67, 68, but it wasn't published anywhere until 69. And he was talking about it, saying how he I forget which author he met with, an author of the Vietnam War in the 60s, who he didn't like very much because he said this guy was like reveling in the atrocities that were going on, kind of thing. And that's where he learned about some atrocities going on in the Vietnam War, and that's what he made this short comic about. But then he never quite got it. And he was like, I didn't he's like, the atrocities weren't well known then. I think he said it wasn't until 69 that the information about, the My Lai massacre came out. And after that, people knew about the atrocities. There's Wilson. So it was after that he found a way to get it published. And it was very heart-wrenching to a lot of people, they said. Good evening there, Wilson.
Good evening. How's it going?
All righty.
You're looking refreshed.
Not too bad. Let me show you the first thing I got this week. I actually got a copy of Bunny number 11.
Oh, great.
Which I got the original art from. Cost me altogether was $22.76. $15 for the comic, $6 for the shipping, and $1.76 tax. But I can finally see the color of what Mary Bopper's bad space lady looks like in color. She's a blonde with white go-go boots and a red dress, which is cut out down the side quite shockingly.
In a children's comic, no less.
Yeah. Well, that's why if you look at the original art, they had it art corrected to make her boobs smaller in a lot of these shots. Obviously, Howie Post drew too sexy for pardon me, it's a Harvey teen comic.
You're not taking over Sally Forth.
But hey, there's, your letters to Bunny. She's got some nice fishnets on.
Ooh.
What year is that?
69, I think. Let me look. Hold on. Let me make sure. Harvey Publications. What? Where's the actual year? September 1969. So I've never seen this before. It says application for second-class entry pending at Sparta, Illinois, under the Act of March 3rd, 1879. I have never seen that in Indicia. I saw the year 1879 and was like, did they get the year wrong? But no, they're applying for second-class entry. Because that was the old thing where you could mail them for cheaper if you had one page of text in a comic during the Golden Age. I guess that was the Act of March 3rd, 1879, some postal act. But it's in pretty good shape. They have it listed at a 4.0. Very good. But I think he undergraded it a little. And the other one I was watching for the last 2 months, he had rated at a fine, I think it was, a 6.0 or something. And this is in better shape than that one, at least the cover. I haven't looked through every page because I didn't care to. I'll do that some other time. I didn't care to count pages and Bunny. I got better things to do with my life. I just looked at the page I wanted to see so I could see her colors. Now I can make my own colored version out of the original art.
Yo. Good to see.
Know what's weird on this too? Let me see if I can show it to you. The lettering on it is all held in it's all held in cyan and magenta, except for that T there. You see that T in party?
Yeah.
That's black with cyan and magenta under it. You can't really see it on the screen, but like the cyan and magenta, but it's like they made that one letter black. Well, they actually made it black and cyan and magenta. It's like such a strange thing. I'm like, what?
It's to emphasize the pun.
Exactly. But there's other puns in here too, but that was the main pun they emphasized. Hey, Mark, your pop art party is terrific. See, that's because, they're jumping into this giant teacup pool. Then there's all sorts of tea puns. Bunny's adding a little sugar, fans. If you think this cover is nut tea, wait till you read what's inside. Glipes. I don't know what kind of expression glipes is, glipes, but that's what this character is saying. Glipes.
Somebody was trying to be Stanley.
I think we make a splashing cup. Oh. Soul, let's go dunk ourselves. Did they make the black character named Soul? I think they did. That lady must be named Soul. Okay. Hi, fans. This ish, I'm sure to outsmart Bunny. Ho, ho. Oh, I mean, look at that. She's drilling a hole.
A hoe?
Oh.
I don't know who did this cover, though. And no, it's weird also. If you look, they have white highlights on Bunny's skin. You don't see that only on her. You don't see that very often. At least I never did.
Must be all the sunblock.
Yeah. It's a bossed in tea party. There's another pun for you. That's must be because she's boss. So the party is boss too.
Oh, they're
That's
hip.
a long way to go to make a Boston joke. But it's also square bound, 64 pages. Harvey Comics. And that tea is a weird color orange. But a fun book. Go ahead, I got it because, how can I not have the original art? I mean, since I have the Happy Friday, comic book fans. Damn, fans. Hey, we like fans with a Z. We're hip and happening.
We're also not only comic book fans. We're comic book fans.
Always cool to have the comic with the original art, exactly. Wow, Bunny Comics. I do not have any. I need to rectify that. I got this because I got the original art from 2 of these pages with Mary Boppers, the bad space lady.
Yeah, Graphic Man's been building it.
Appears a lot. Oh, okay. It does appear a lot. I've never noticed it. It's very distracting. You're simply trying to find the correct date of publication.
So Graphic Man's been building up a collection of Boris Karloff comics. So now that he's done with them, he can start building up a bunny collection.
A bunny collection. And it was originally, I think, the cover because it started last year with my history of pop art reading that I started getting those pop art comics. And I think Bunny number 4, someone pointed out here, was a pop art cover. So that was what looking for Bunny number 4 led me to the original art from Bunny number 11, which I still don't have Bunny number 4, but this is a pop art reference on it too, being that she says her pop art pool party. I guess they were leaning heavy into the pop art in the 60s and Bunny comics.
At the time, pop art was the legitimate art. So
yeah, and it was copying comics.
Yep.
So comics was trying to copy it.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
Last week I forgot to rant about people defending Roy Lichtenstein.
I saw on Facebook you mentioning that.
Yes. You had people defending the idea that Roy Lichtenstein's work was transformative, therefore original, therefore not necessary to compensate monetarily the original creators, which I completely disagree, because sampling exists in music.
Good evening. I agree he should have compensated the original creators, but that also gets into a problem with they don't actually own any of that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, and he did, as I always point out, Jack Abel did get money from Roy Lichtenstein. He's the only one I know of because I saw the check personally. It's probably 90 or 91. Jack used to sit next to me. I was up at a drawing table like this. He was down proofreading his table. And one day I just looked over. He was just opening his mail. And I just looked over to say something to him, and he was holding a check from Roy Lichtenstein. Because it had the the top of checks have names on them. Roy printed out. Roy Lichtenstein Incorporated. Well, I don't even remember what it said. I just blurted out, "You get a check from Roy Lichtenstein?" And he went, "It's not much, but it's something." I didn't see what the amount was. I may have not looked out of politeness or whatever, and it must have been not much, but at least I know Jack Abel somehow got a check from Roy Lichtenstein. I've never heard of anyone else getting a check from him, but I saw that check with my own eye. What was that?
You know which artwork it was for?
Oh, you can look it up on Roy Lichtenstein Deconstructed. Put that in. There's a website that shows where Roy Lichtenstein got all the artwork from.
And before I forget, Bunny ran 20 issues. So that is, you could collect the whole run. And they had a 21st issue about 5 years later after the run. I happened to read that on Wikipedia about it. So you could collect the whole Bunny run. It's only a 21 issue
would be a huge collection.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And but I probably run on bunnies.
But I could argue that Roy Lichtenstein's work is transformative, but that doesn't mean he doesn't owe the money.
Correct.
I mean, whether you want to say
we all know that Ice Baby sampled Queen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually quite common to sample in music, especially when it involves electronic music. One of the first early hip-hop hits, Planet Rock by Afrika Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force, uses a sample from Kraftwerk's Trans-Europe Express. And of course, they had to pay Kraftwerk to use it.
Because that's how hip hop was invented. It was originally the DJ who was the star of the group, and they would play, and the DJ would literally play records and mix them together, playing little samples from each record. And eventually, but no one was recording it. So that's how the genre was invented. With there was no one playing music. There was people playing turntables. Matter of fact, there's a wonderful on YouTube. Oh, who was it? Oh, suddenly he his name flipped. His name just lost. He was one of the original DJs in the 70s. You know his name. He's one of the original guys. And there's like an hour-long interview with him where he's got two turntables and he's showing you how he put all this stuff together and how you find that. And he was a real math geek as a kid. That's how he kind of invented his turntable skills, because he knew the math of it. He knew he had to go back this many rotations to get to and it was all very mathematical the way he did it. Oh, I'll have to look up his name. He's famous, you know his name. But just watching him do this and showing you how he invented the mixing,
Cool Herc,
what was
Grandmaster
amazing.
Flash.
It may have been Grandmaster Flash. But it was just amazing because you could tell he was a real man, and he even said it. I was a math geek when I was a kid. That's what led me to this, is the mathematical side of music. So that's what they're all before rap hip hop was recorded. The DJ was the star, and that's what they were doing. They were sampling music, playing it live at parties. But I think what it is the music industry is smaller than sort of the visual arts industry in general. And the music industry has been locked down corporately, the pop music industry, since almost day one. So there's very little disputes over who owns what and what you can do with it. So it's like, there's no disputes over who owns this Elvis song. His manager stole all his rights. He owns it. He stole it fair and square. It's his. So it's like but in like the visual arts, who owns a panel from a comic book? That's we know who owned like it's very definite in music who owns stuff, because because all that stuff is owned by corporations and gangsters at sometimes, and they fought that all out in the courts. But with like comic books at the time, and even who owns a comic book panel? Well, we know who owns Spider-Man, but a comic book panel of Spider-Man, or a comic book panel of Spider-Man that you draw with a different costume? Who owns that? So the visual arts gets a lot murkier, because that stuff hasn't all been fought out in courts, because who owns what? And also, like even with the Liechtenstein stuff, Jack Abel couldn't go to court. Couldn't take Roy Lichtenstein to court because he didn't own that art. How he got it. So all those guys who got ripped off by Lichtenstein also said that he was bringing that up. The part of his art was bringing up the fact that the corporations owned this art or something. I don't know. I think it was him just dodging paying anyone, but I also think his basic thesis was wrong. Ended up being wrong, because his basic thesis kind of was taking everyday, nameless, faceless commercial art that we see and transforming it into fine art. The problem was that stuff didn't end up being nameless and faceless. So it's tough. It's tough to transform a piece of. I mean, it's tough to transform a piece of art when we know who did the piece of art. It's kind of like if it was nameless face. I think Warhol was more successful with like the Campbell soup cans, because we really don't know who designed them. I mean, there are people who do know, but in general, there's no, there's no packaging fans like there are comic book fans who know everything about the history and know all the artists are and knew who the artists were at the time. So I think that and if you look at deconstructing Liechtenstein, often he didn't do as good a job as the original artists. It's like he didn't have any idea what inking was. So the sort of, if you look at the original panel, it's better than his final. So that's a problem, I think, with his work.
Well, sycophants probably wouldn't know what inking is
No.
either, and they would think that just the fact that Liechtenstein copied it made it better.
Right. They don't know either. There is that, but they don't want to know, and that's how it always was. That's a problem I have with Liechtenstein too, in that when it comes to being an artist, I'm very into image making in terms of what I put on the paper, making an image of something. I like to come up with images that no one's seen before, to mine my subconscious for image. I think that to me is what I like best about art, is the images that people come up with that we've never seen before. He didn't do all his images were someone else's. But that's, other people didn't mind that because they don't know that. But I always minded that. Which is also a reason I get bored looking at like I said, corporate superhero art on Twitter or something. When somebody goes, "Oh, here's my drawing of Batman," or "Here's my drawing of Superman," or I'm always like, I've seen 1,000 drawings of Batman or Superman. Yours isn't better than the other 1,000, so it's kind of uninteresting. I'd rather see these people draw their own stuff. But of course, the rest of the world is different. The rest of the world would rather see a drawing of Batman in general. But I'm always like, another drawing of Batman. You got to do a really different sort of drawing of Batman for me to take notice of it.
In the 70s, the BMW hired Roy Lichtenstein to paint one of the racing BMWs for the Le Mans 24 Hours. It's one of the least interesting designs that were commissioned. Alexander Calder's was much more vibrant.
I've seen other Roy Lichtenstein paintings that he did later on, even in that same dot style where he wasn't copying comic book panels, and I actually liked them better than his copying comic book panels ones. If you ever get a chance to see some other stuff, it's much more design. It's much better designed. Because, like I said, he obviously didn't know anything about inking, and wasn't thinking about he wasn't thinking about his line in those comic book ones as an ink line defining the form, which is a very specific thing.
So it's kind of funny. If Lichtenstein hadn't become famous, he would have had to work as a commercial artist. Yeah. So he would need to be technically proficient.
Mm-hmm. Well, like the other ones I've seen of his, he's technically proficient. Or maybe his assistants were, I'm not sure. He had assistants. But like the other images I've seen of him working in that style, some of them were even still lives, seemed much more technically proficient, probably because he wasn't copying a technically proficient ink line to begin with and not capturing it.
Also, I don't think he understood the language of comics.
No.
He just, he picked a panel that he thought looked good, or he picked a panel that probably he thought he could do quickly and easily.
They look like half-assed comic book panels. Like you're right. He didn't quite understand the language of comics. He was trying to copy an image from a comic, but didn't understand what that image was doing. Mm-hmm. I think is the problem. Like, because I've seen other things he's done that I've liked that weren't comics.
Taking it back to the BMW art cars. So here's one that kind of looks like it was painted by you, Jared. Let me see if I can.
I've actually painted Matchbox cars before. I'll see if I can find some sometime. I have pictures of them somewhere. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Influenced by geometry and stuff. I can see that. That one's pretty cool.
The painter's name is Esther Malangu. Yeah, this was created in 1991.
BMW. Pretty wild. That's pretty neat. Pretty neat. Oh, we should continue our conversation from last week because I think I figured out. I've messaged you, the DM'd you. I think last week we were going very deep into the minutia of why original comic art from the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s looks like it did, all cut up, and stuff. And it started with me trying to figure out the answer to the question, why were the corners cut off in comics from the mid 70s to the 80s? But let me show you. Let me show our audience here what Corey Settlemeyer. Let me share my screen. Corey Settlemeyer sent me. Where is Photoshop? Is it not here? Hold on. I don't think Photoshop's in the right screen again, is it? Yeah. Oh, I must have had it hidden. Window. Let me go back to share. Present. Share screen. Share screen. Let's try this. There we go. Here is what Corey sent me. This is a scan of the film. So this is what the top of the copy table looked like. And this stuff right in the middle, I think that's on the copy table. Page 61, page 30, or page 19, page 30, page 14, page 3. And this is
that should be on the film. Not on
this
the
is
coffee.
the 4-up. Yeah, this is the film.
Right.
And as we can see here, where is the film size? Oh, there we go. See these registration marks in red? Right there. Right there. They were on the table, on the copy table that they had. So I think what they did was they lined the pages. They had to line the pages up by putting them against these registration marks. The problem was, here's the size of the pages. So when they lined them up with the registration marks, they start to cut off. They cut off the actual registration marks. So that's why they ended up having to cut the pages. They had to cut the pages so they could see these registration marks. First of all, they had to cut the pages, the top of the pages, so they could see this, which I think was this right here, this cross, and these where you write these numbers. I think they wrote those right on the table and then erased them. And then, of course, what I think they had to do was, since they had to cut the left side and they had to cut the right side and they had to cut the top, they must have taped them along the bottom. So they taped each page along the bottom and then proceeded to cut 3 sides off of each page. And then, of course, they closed the glass lid and shot it. And then I think after they did that, rather than pull the tape off the bottom, they just cut they cut the page off the bottom. Instead of pulling the tape off, they just cut the bottom of the page. That's why these pages ended up being on 4 sides. All because it started out with, they need this middle part here. I don't know why they just didn't write on the pages. They wrote on this middle part here, which I think was right on the copy table. And took a few pages of interior. Where is, and it started out here. The very first thing that happened, here we go. Right after the pages got smaller, they used pegs. So here they had a punch, instead of taping it, they punched holes for pegs. And still had to cut the page. They still had to cut the top. Once again, to get that middle thing to get this to show through, they still had to cut the top, but they used pegs first and not tape. And then here's the ones they use tape on because all four sides are cut and there's no peg holes. And finally, what I think happened was they got a new machine in the mid 70s. And that's when, oh, no, not this one. Where is they got a new machine in the mid 70s where they didn't have to, instead of taping the bottom, they taped the corners. Because they no longer had to cut the sides the same. Because it was so, and I know they got a new machine in the 70s. It's mentioned in a couple of places. So now, since they still have to cut the top, and what's weird is I don't know why they cut the top sometimes like that. Maybe the new machine meant them. But now, instead of cutting across the whole bottom, they just cut the tape right off the corners. So it was all because they had to have this information here that they cut the pages. So I think that takes into account Elliot Brown's remembering, and that takes into account Michael Higgins's memories too, and from what you can see in the pages. So I think there's had three stages: the peg stage, then they must have got another machine or something, and the cutting four sides stage. And then I know they got a new machine because I just read it when I was looking up the history of Marvel printing or something. They got a new machine in the mid 70s, and that made them just tape down the corners. Then they just cut off the corners rather than pull the tape off. Why they didn't get drafting tape that's easy to pull off, I don't know. Because they make tape that's easy to pull off. I got some right here. This is Scotch removable tape. But which may have not been enough for them. But they've made drafting tape for 100 years, which is like masking tape, except it's low tack. It's made for drafting. That's why it's called drafting tape. So if you were doing, mechanical drawing, drafting work in the 50s, you'd use drafting tape to hold down your drawings, and then it peels off easily. Why they didn't use that, I don't know. It would seem to be, I guess, since they had to cut anyway, it was just as easy to cut the tape that last time. But I think that's my final. I think I've answered the question to my satisfaction why the corners were cut off. Because I think what Higgins said, what was that?
I think that works as an explanation. To me, I see that if they're dealing with 4 pages at a time, trying to do a 22-page book, how many books are going out that month? So they got to rush it through. And that's why I think there's also that bit of unevenness, because if they're cutting, the blade's getting duller, and I can see it just kind of like squiggling as you're going by. Because
what it is,
blade.
If you look at a lot of them, like especially in the cutting 4 sides ones, it looked like they just dropped a straight edge on there. Just dropped the straight edge, threw the knife down, it dropped it. But not all the time. There's sometimes, like I said, that uneven one is just like, why did they cut off half the top? Maybe that in that era, that's where the info was. Because like I think that that issue number and the page numbers must have been right on the copy table when they lined it up. So they had to cut it, and they had to cut it off because what it is like that one thing the one thing that Corey had me is dead on accurate in terms of all the pages being square, and you can't cut the pages and then square them up. That doesn't work. You have to square them up and then cut them. So like they had to have taped them down in order to cut them.
So I went through some artwork that I had to see if I had any that were cut. And I do not have many from that era, but I do have a Superman page that I am not sure if it's cut short because it looks pretty square. The only difference is that it seems to be close.
Let's see.
Superman, Kurt Swan, Superman issue, but
that looks like it was.
But it looks like it was cut really close.
Yeah, that looks like it's cut, but it was cut with a straight edge with great care, more care than a lot of the Marvel ones.
Yes, And then on the back it has the copyright notice that says 1977.
Yeah. See, now that DC must have been getting, because that's the era of the cut corners.
Right.
So DC must not have been getting the film done at the same place as Marvel.
I'm guessing that's what it was, is that they were going to different companies that was doing it.
Yeah. But as I said, I think that's my fun. That was my. I think I finally have my question answered as to why the corners were cut. And like it was Higgins who said, it was faster to cut the corners than to take the tape off. But how do you get there is the question. Because I can, that they got there because they've been cutting the pages for years. Because I can't imagine any client being happy that you have to cut their artwork. But I'm from the era where you wouldn't do that sort of thing.
Right, that's the thing. That was during a time where the art wasn't worth anything yet, because what was worth to the company was a printed thing.
Right. We should say it wasn't worth anything to the company except to hold over the heads of the artists.
Exactly.
Artists sure thought it was worth something. There's plenty of them who did. Matter of fact, I was just reading Sleepy Reader got a copy of the Jim Warren book. It's like a biography of Jim Warren from Warren Publishing that came out. And he was reading, and he mentioned something about Jim Warren paid more but kept the artwork. And Neil Adams found out he was keeping his artwork and never worked for him again. So there were plenty of artists who knew. I mean, we can go back to, what's his name? The classic pinup art of George Petty. In the 30s, he made sure, since it was a new magazine, he kept that I think Esquire was just starting at that they didn't keep the original artwork, and they only had first print rights. They didn't have reprint rights and everything else. So artists knew, Petty knew, even in the 30s, that was his artwork, and just because he was doing a job for them doesn't mean they get to keep everything. So that, and that was usual for a lot of places. Like the second guy, Vargas, who replaced him, Esquire who was, from South America and looking to break in, Esquire told them, no, we own the rights to your work. And he went, okay, because he was trying to, already taking advantage of artists. But George Petty was like, no, you want to publish my work? You have first publishing rights. I can sell second publishing rights, third publishing rights, whatever publishing rights I want, because they're mine. So when people tell you the art didn't have any value, don't believe them.
No. What I'm saying that the company would say,
Oh, I know. But I know you didn't mean it that way. I know you didn't mean it that way. But I've heard people talk about comic history and say, "Oh, but the art had no value then." I'm like, yeah, it did. Plenty of artists wanted it back. What is that weird echo we're getting? I'm getting a strange echo. Echo. Is it Wilson giving us the echo? He muted, so now I don't hear it. Let's talk.
Did it?
Yeah, I think we're getting an echo from you.
Is it an echo or someone talking in the background? Because my brother is talking on the phone in the background.
I think it's an echo because I can sometimes hear my own words.
Oh, okay.
But it's garbled. It's like it's like a loudspeaker off in the distance. When you can hear, like there's a school doing a football game off in the distance or something. You can just hear. Right. You don't know. I don't know what they're saying, but they're saying something. I think that's what it is.
I lowered my speaker a bit because it may be that
Yeah, maybe it's
hearing
coming off your
yourself.
speaker. Mm-hmm.
So I hit the comic book shop this week.
I saw your TikTok. Yeah, that's amazing that Petty had that foresight. A lot of artists, some artists are good businessmen. They know better.
Yeah, that's the thing. So a lot of people don't know when they're going in, and next thing you know it, they're getting taken advantage of because they didn't know any better.
Well, and that's why they get hired too, because they don't know any better.
True, very true.
Because the publishers were looking for somebody they could take advantage of.
So I'm trying out having a pull list, a pull box, and so far it's been working well. I get like about 2 issues per week, and then I go in and look at the plethora of books and try to decide what is it that I want.
Yep.
And while I was at Midtown, I ended up striking a conversation with one of the workers. He actually struck up the conversation as, "Is there anything I can get you?" And at that point, I'm just looking because I already have my books on the side that I could pick up and pay for. But I was like, all right, I had a question about something. And the first thing he says is like, "Do you work in comics?" And I'm like, "Yes, matter of fact, I do." So I'm wondering, does he recognize me from social media, or what is it that he recognizes me from? And it's like, "I've met you before." And it turned out that he ran into me at a con years ago. And I guess I made an impact because it's like, you do Section 8 comics. And that threw me back because it's like, all right, it's my small press. But we only do local shows. We're not, large and national or whatever. And we've only have a handful of books. That's one of the
Section 8
shows.
Comics.
Here's our logo.
In Purchase, New York at July 13th, Reed Castle, Manhattanville College.
So I was surprised to get recognized, and it's like, yeah, I work in comics. I do this because to me, Midtown isn't like Hanley's, where Hanley's, we went there all the time, so I knew everybody that worked there. Where Midtown, I don't know any of the people there because I go in, I get my books, and I go out because they're always busy. Where at Hanley's back in the day, there was always a time to have, or I felt like there was always time to have a conversation, what books we're getting and stuff like that. Midtown, they do a great job, but it's like go in, go out. So I ended up striking a conversation, and then he recommended some books because I was like, all right, he was like, do you want me to recommend some books? I said, go ahead. Let it, my only restriction was I don't want Marvel or DC. Not that there's anything wrong with Marvel or DC, but I know it all. I know what I'm going to get. So let me branch out more.
You can pick out your own Marvel and DC books.
Exactly, because I know what I'm getting.
Right.
There hasn't been a surprise in me getting a Marvel or DC book in years.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, what do you recommend? And we had the little talk of what I like and this and that. And the books that he recommends happens to be the books that you recommend anyway. So I thought it was kind of funny. So I have my first issue of Radiant Black. Issue 23.
23, the latest one. Good issue. Mm-hmm. Things are starting to take off in sort of the international space story of that one.
Oh, is it? Okay.
There may be some giant robots coming down to kill us all. That's all you need to know.
That's exactly all I need to know. Right in my wheelhouse. Then a copy of No One.
No One? Is that the first issue? Oh, yeah.
This is the second issue, but I also did they did have the first issue. I believe this is second printing.
Okay.
Where that's what it says on it. Second printing.
Just to warn you about No One. I like the book. It's on my pull list. But that's the one I was complaining that there were some scenes that didn't make sense until the end of the first issue. Sort of, it's like they were doing scenes not giving you information that you needed to fully understand the scene. until you get to the end of the issue, and then you're like, oh, that's what that first scene meant. And I'm always like, why do writers do that? So I liked it much better reading it the second time through.
Okay.
But just in case you read it and go, what's going on here? But they both take place in the same universe too.
Okay.
They're both what's called the Massive Verse.
The Massive Verse?
Which is Radiant Black, Rogue's Son, Now No One, and I think they've also done Radiant Pink, and there's one other that I can't remember that I don't collect.
Yeah, he did recommend Radiant Pink only because there were 4 issues out of that, but I didn't get that one. So those are the ones that he picked out.
Yeah.
And then from just picking it off the shelf, I picked this one up just because I really like the cover. It's called The Mighty Barbarians.
Okay, I think I've glanced at that one. I may have. I'm trying to remember if I did or not.
And it was just because of the cover.
Right.
Was
good enough reason to buy a comic.
Yeah. I saw the cover and was like, that looks interesting.
Despite the fact that lots of publishers don't think about their covers as much as they used to, besides putting on variant ones.
Exactly.
I still buy comics because of their covers on occasion.
And then from the pull list, Clobbering Time number 2.
Okay. Clobbering Time number 2. Does he have different skin on there? Oh, he's magically like having his rocks removed or turned into fungus?
That's what it looks like. Okay. So he looks like a walking version of the coronavirus. Yeah. And then Wolverine's in it too.
Special guest star, dead on the floor.
Wolverine. And then this book called Behold Behemoth.
Okay.
From Burn Studios. Let me actually take it out because there's so much of a glare. It's an incredibly dark looking cover, but this is one that I happen just to put onto the pull list.
You've read that one before?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. That was another one when I was trying to pick out books for pull lists. I was like, I needed 10 books, and I was it took me a while to really pick what books I wanted to get that made me feel like this is what I will go for every week. And so far, I picked 10 books, I think 11 altogether, and it's been like every week has been about 2 books. I haven't broken more than 2 books per week.
Comic Craft. I flipped through both of those Clobbering Times issue. Pretty cool art. Tempted to try it. Okay.
Yeah. Now that the Thing has his own issue, it got me thinking back in the day. I really liked the Thing's being that team up guy. Spider-Man was fine, but the Thing's own book, I think it was 2-in-1.
Marvel 2-in-1. Yep.
Right. I had fun with those. And then when the Thing had his own series in the 80s, I really enjoyed it. It's just that he's cool with the Fantastic Four, but I always found him more interesting by himself with another character. And the first one was with the Hulk. This one's with Wolverine. Haven't read them yet. And then the only other thing that I picked up was the preview versions of Marvel and DC, what they're putting out.
Right.
I'm always
their own magazine now.
Yep. I'm always interested in what they're doing and how their covers look. But at the same time, it's like, I know what I'm getting.
Are they free or do they charge you for it?
These were free, or these were at least in the section where you can pull them. And on the back it says free. So,
all right. I'm never sure because sometimes they used to be free, but only if you bought previews. And then I was like, I'll leave them there. I don't want to figure it out.
They have them piled right at the door where it says free.
Oh, okay. You can grab them on the way out. So they're free.
Exactly.
Yeah, they want you to take them out of the store.
Right. So they have them with like the comic shop news. So this one's advertising free comic book day.
Yeah.
Coming up.
No comic shop news in my comic shop last 2 weeks.
Oh no?
No, sometimes it disappears. I don't know if they don't get them delivered or what. I had a couple of last issues this week. The last issue of Image Comics' 30th anniversary anthology. That's Science Dog. I have to say, I've been a little disappointed with this series. First of all, 12th issue of an anthology series, and there's at least 3 stories in here that are to be continued.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, really? You're like Science Dog. This was part 1 of a story or something. It's like it's the last issue. Well, how are you giving us a part 1 of a story to be continued? The best thing for me has been this one page of Dean Haspiel at the end of every one. One of the weakest things that I've been most disappointed with in this has been the Scotty Young's got 2 pages, a 2-page strip in every issue. And it's like every one of them is about how he has to come up with an idea for a strip. And I'm just like, talk about the most tired, hackneyed idea ever is me coming up with an idea for this strip, which is what this entire one was. And it's just maybe I'll ask my family for ideas. I have an idea. How about you refilling your wife's coffee for my last comic? No, just refill my coffee. And it's just like, of course I have a good idea. I'm 7 and get to say whatever I want. It still comes off as cute and precocious. Wait, that's it. Just sent my last strip. If it isn't great, I reused the first strip, changed it. And it's like, come on, why are you wasting all our time? There's nothing clever about this. So it's like he got 2 pages, knocked him out the last minute, and we have 2 pages of Scotty Young pointlessly. Just kind of made me disappointed every time I read it. And there's been this one story that's been going on, The Blizzard Conclusion by Jeff Johns, Andrea Moody, and Rob Lee. It's a story about a prison bus with these prisoners on it, caught in a blizzard, some sort of Bigfoot monster that makes them see everything they're guilty of. Okay. So we got a 12-part story of that not very interesting thing. The only thing interesting about it was the very last page. One of Jeff Johns's heroes finally shows up. This is the Red Coat. So he's got like Junkyard Joe. Who's the first one? Geiger. And the Red Coat is his third, the next miniseries, I think, of his whatever they call Weird Heroes Eternal, whatever they are. And he shows up on the very last page, and you're like, oh, I read that whole story. The only thing that's interesting is maybe the next series that comes out with the Red Coat in it. I was like, so a lot of there was some good stuff. This actually was a night. I liked the art in this one called Chance Meetings, but it was a 3-page slice of life story about these 2 people meeting. It was kind of like it was 3 pages of a meet cute. I was like, all right, that this was one of the better stories. Says something about that overall I was just kind of disappointed in it most of the way. So because I like anthologies. If I get an anthology that I like 3/4 of, that's a really good anthology. Their batting average, I think, was below 50%. I had to wear a cone of shame for a day after I mixed up James Stocco and Steve Scroche. Because he's Scotty Young and he sucks. Oh, man. Sorry, did I say that out loud? I still like Scotty's art. Yeah, I've got nothing against Scotty Young. He wrote that story I liked. What was the name of it? It was a 5-issue series about the woman who is an artist living in a haunted house that came out last year. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was good. I enjoyed that one. This I didn't enjoy. Any autobiographical any autobiographical comic strip about the artist coming up with the comic strip is guaranteed to be boring. because there's no interesting way of coming up with a comic strip. There just isn't. It's
It would be more interesting if they did an autobiographical comic about going to Lowe's.
Yeah,
and getting a
that
power
would be
tool,
more
power drill.
interesting. Then sitting there trying to come up with an idea. They're all the same. You sit there trying to come up with an idea. Oh, there's it. That The Me You Love in the Dark. That's the one Scotty Young wrote. I forget who drew it, but I liked that series. That was a good one. So I'm not against Scotty Young, but I'm against the strip he did in that anthology. But Plush was the other comic that ended this week. Plush issue 6 of 6. This was the same team who brought us Vinyl and a few other things. Plastic was the one I didn't read. Doug Wagner's the writer. Danielle Hilliard is the artist. Rico Renzi, the colorist. Ed Dukeshire is the letterer. I just like saying Dukeshire. That's a good name. But this was the cannibal plushies against the corrupt sheriff's office. So it was a lot of fun. Cannibal plushies. I'm against him. I'm gonna start a group.
So so the books from the previous week, I tried to start reading them, and I only had a few hours, not even a few hours. I only had a few minutes, so I read one of them, and I read the Savage Dragon issue. And it is the first time that I read an issue of the Savage Dragon in probably a decade, if not more.
Right.
And I was not ready for this issue at all. I don't recall if the Savage Dragon had always been a mature reader book.
It has always been a mature reader book, but within the last, say, 5 years, he's put sex and nudity into it more because Malcolm Dragon is so young.
Right.
So there was like a young couple. So there was more sex and nudity in it than there ever had been before. But it's always had the mature label. And when he pointed that out when he started doing the sex and nudity, people were like, oh my goodness, there's sex and nudity. He's like, dude, I've always had the mature label on this.
Right. So I was not ready for this, for the things that happened in the book. It was quite surprising. It was quite jarring. I open it up, and to me, the designs are a classic comic book design.
Oh yeah, he's really going with some
really into
70s Marvel.
Is using old Marvel designs, even the cover, even the trade dress.
Oh, you got that's the alternate trade dress cover. Every issue he does the regular cover and the 70s Marvel throwback cover. Same artwork, just the trade dress is different.
So here's it's a classic old Marvel lettering style, design, logo.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Morelli's doing the lettering. So I was fine with it. I don't know any of these characters.
Right.
So as I'm reading through it and learning about them, having a chuckle with North Force.
Right.
Basically looking like the typical Alpha Flight characters. And I'm enjoying it. Mm-hmm. And then the fight with the woman shows up and
in her Electra skirt.
In her Electra skirt that's not covering anything.
Yes.
Now, I'm not a prude or anything. I just wasn't ready for it. So for me, it was quite jarring. It did take me out of the story for a minute. And
for those of you who don't know, Savage Dragon is fighting this woman. Was it Katana or someone?
Something like that.
Who's dressed sort of like an Electra outfit with a long skirt, except she's got no underwear on. So she's like wildly kicking, and Savage Dragon is like, dude, you're showing me your coochie. Stop that. So he's commenting on her being a nudist pervert as they're fighting, and he draws it too. He doesn't. He draws it.
The only picture I could show you of her is this one. That's her.
Hold on, let me get that bigger.
That's the only image I feel safe showing on YouTube.
But that covering uncovers.
Yes. And, you know, a weird way it makes sense. If you're going to wear something like that and you're fighting, things are going to pop out.
Right.
But again, she could have wore underwear. But the other thing, too, is like, I don't know who these characters are.
Right. They're all new to you.
All completely new to me. They do some explanation here.
Savage Dragon takes place in real time. Mm-hmm. So that all the characters from 10 years ago have aged, and maybe new characters. Like I said, there's a new dragon, his son. Malcolm is the old Savage Dragon is gone, and Malcolm is the star of the series now.
I think a lot of supporting. There are a lot more supporting characters getting disemboweled and beheaded than there was 20 years ago.
Yes, I think so. You're right. Though he did kill whole worlds back then, but now it's more perfect. Like one poor was that issue that poor kid dies too.
Yes. When she shows up, and again, I don't want to show it because also what I didn't realize is that Erik Larsen does red blood in his books.
Yeah, no comics code.
Those who don't know, when we did blood, and by we I meant Marvel, when we did blood, it would be black. You can have black blood all over the place. You can have that all over the place. It's fine. When it's red, obviously it's more shocking. And
weapon of distraction. Excellent.
And once I closed the book, that's when I spotted, M for mature, kind of like leaped out to me. And it's like, well, it's on there. But again, I don't remember if it was. I remember it being that violent, and I do remember him having red blood. But the nudity took me out of it. I was surprised. So yeah, it was surprising. And I'll keep reading it. I'll pick up the next issue. But again, I just wasn't ready.
Now you'll be ready for it. Now you'll be ready for it.
I'll be ready for it. But it was interesting.
Looks like we have gangs forming. You can start a counter group. We have the pro Scotty Young and the anti Scotty Young gangs are forming up in Canada. And they're going to have a West Side Story face-off. I know
it. Erik Larsen is lying. He switched rating from 214 to 215.
I could be misquoting him. He could have said years and not.
Okay, but this was in 2016. So from 2014 to 215, it goes from teen plus to mature.
Okay. I guess he had plans for more sex and nudity. But speaking of crazy, this is the latest Cerebus in Hell, new Varks. And man, I am so hit and miss with him. And this is a double-sized issue, too. First of all, I liked the artwork. He did this Kirby pastiche, mostly with cut and paste stuff. But it's funny. Last issue was the Roe versus Wade one, and that one ended up being really funny. I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'm going to like this one, because I think Dave Sim is funny, but not when he makes political jokes. One of the problems being, I think, that there's always there's been a question that's not just mine, that's everyone's, is why are there very few conservative comedians? And lots of people have answers for that, or ideas or whatever. But and Dave Sim, I guess he's kind of a religious conservative, you'd call him now. But I'm telling you, there was so much word salad in this one that it was just like, let me see if I can get you up, because the whole idea, I think, was they were looking for, there's this nice artwork. Let me show you a little of the artwork. There's this nice Kirby-esque artwork going on. It's cut and paste stuff that Sim does because he can't draw anymore. But it's really nicely done and nicely designed. But the and they're comic strips with a weird plot in them. And I think the idea, I'm not even sure. I got to find one page that I can read to you just so you can hear the word salad gibberish. I think he's making fun of what he sees as liberal ideas, but most of the ideas are filtered through like Republican talking points. So it's not actually liberal ideas, it's liberal ideas as filtered through Republican talking points. So it's distorted to begin with. Like here's this page of, and I think Spacevark here just made it to this city that's somewhere in Pennsylvania, and I think is supposed to be a liberal utopia, because the joke is that liberals want a utopia. And I'm like, that's a joke? That's not, once again, that's Republican filtering of liberal ideas. Oh, well, you guys want a utopia. So it's like, there's not anything funny about that idea. Then he pant, and Cerebus makes it into the city and says, finally. And then there's somebody in the city, I guess a tour guide giving a tour that said, mistakes were made sounds bad. No, actually it is bad, harmful to others. Of all the harmful harms, After Gag Guy, the After Gag Guy is Dave Sim making his little After Gag talks up there, which I've stopped reading ages ago. After Gag Guy can think of, the only harmful harm worse than utopia dissing is a utopia disser saying mistakes were made. Maybe saying the 2020 election was stolen, possibly that's a worse harmful harm than even utopia dissing. After Gag Guy can't be sure. Because After Gag Guy was an abused child and still suffers from the resulting substance abuse, alcoholism, eating and sleeping disorders, gambling addictions, and bipolar harms, which cause After Gag Guy to misperceive himself as a racialized homeless black trans woman whenever he's accused of doing something bad. Is there a joke in there somewhere?
If there is, I don't know.
Word salad. I think he's just trying to. Once again, I don't know if he's making fun. It would make more sense if he was making fun of Republican talking points of liberal idea, of democratic idea, but he's not. He's just throwing like words. He thinks this is funny. And the whole thing is like that. All natural, fully organic, pesticide-free, additive, free-range, fair trade, ocean view, 3 and 4 bedroom Sequoia duplex condominiums as far as the eye can see. Ha ha ha! That's the punchline. I only made it about halfway through this one before I gave up.
Well, was that written by Dave Sim or by Gail Kordschuler?
I don't know that it was written by anyone.
Because it sounds like something that Gail Kordschuler did for her movies. And Gail Kordschuler is Brent Spiner's, data from Star Trek. Brent Spiner's nymphomaniac stalker. And she did a movie on which is her own sex fantasy. Well, she plays all the characters, including Brent Spiner. And there are pieces of dialogue that are equally gibberish on that level.
The amount of gibberish. You said it, After Gag Guy. I need a Tesla. Everyone from trillionaires to millionaires to the homeless know that, 1. Tesla dashboard apps connect directly to your brain, accelerate human evolution, not in millennia, but in mere seconds. No one wants to be left behind in the unevolved form that they were assigned at birth. 3. Consequently, it's only fair that the United Nations declare Tesla ownership and Tesla dashboard app ownership an inalienable human right.
What?
I don't know what he's making fun of. I don't know what he's trying to make fun of. I don't know.
I don't know. It's a beautiful cover. I'll give you that. I almost
Yeah,
picked it up myself because of it. But it's
the
beautiful.
artwork is nice. You know, you have to have a particular sense of adventure and be able to handle disappointment if you want to read Cerebus and Hell. Some issues are genuinely funny, though. I'm not particularly a fan of I'm not a fan of sideways comics either, but these are like web comics originally. That's why they're sideways. So I think you can read them for free on the web. I don't know if anyone does, but hardly any. This is the print run on this is only 1,344, so not many people are reading, and I'm sure a bunch of those are buying it just for the cover.
I would imagine.
I'm sorry, I tuned out. You can start over. No, you can. Holy cow! Oh, pardon me. The name of the city is Kurtzenberg, Pennsylvania. Jack Kirby's real name, hence the Kirby theme. The city itself engages with you in collaborative work stream and live stream real-time experiences, analyzing your every communication for personality, demographics, and mood. So, I guess that's part of his idea of it's supposed to be utopian, but the baffling.
Yeah.
Completely and utterly baffling. But enough of that crazy issue, because it was crazy. At least once every third issue, I can't make it through. I'm just like, what kind of that whole issue was word salad. No joke. It looked like at least last issue where I thought he was going to be making Roe versus Wade jokes. He didn't. The whole issue was Cerebus and the Whore of Babylon avoiding making Roe versus Wade jokes. So there was actually jokes in there. Them making jokes to avoid making jokes. This one, if there were jokes in there, was beyond me. I could not comprehend the jokes.
That issue was not made for you. I don't know what who these issues are made for.
I don't know who that issue was made for.
But it's amazing.
Matter of fact, I hate when he does double-sized, double-priced issues, and then I can't even make it through them. I'm like, why do I buy this book? Why did I waste $8 of my money on this book? Then the next issue, I go, oh, we'll give this one a try. I prefer them to be single-sized.
Right.
The art in it was he did a good job with his Kirby riffs. And what he does is he can only make a few drawings, scan them in and then manipulate them in Photoshop. But even and I think he has someone maybe help him manipulate them in Photoshop. But even the manipulation in Photoshop was interesting. Because there's things were bent, curved, and then in this spacey, Kirby-esque way. That was cool. Mm-hmm. And another one that was a little disappointing. What's the furthest place from here? Matthew Rosenberg and Tyler Boss. I like the art. I like the storytelling, but this book doesn't seem to have a purpose anymore. Because it was one of those things when the main plot is it takes place in these world where all the grown-ups are gone. And all these kids have grown up in a world with no grown-ups. They're all living in their own part of the city, and they have gangs, kind of. They're like social groups based on whatever is like the original social group was based on a record store. They didn't necessarily know what a record store was, but their whole social group was based around a record store. Another social group was based around the boys in blue being police officers. And they're all 5 to 16 years old because there's no adults. And the other social group was built around, I don't know, sort of the mods and the rockers sort of stuff. So there was all this weirdness going around, and the record store social group, our original group, had to leave and find something else. But 12 issues later, we still don't know anything that's going on. And there was also these people there who were watching over them, who we know nothing about, called the Strangers, who are like these tall, masked people. And in this issue, on the last page, we finally got a little reveal. We still don't know who the Strangers are, but we got a picture of them, of one of them without their mask, and they've got like multiple eyes. And it's like, oh, okay. That's weird, but it tells me nothing. Let me see if I can show you the picture. There we go. There's one of the Strangers with their mask off, got multiple eyes and a scarred face kind of thing, scarred with, but it still tells us nothing about the Strangers. And we even had like a repeat in this one where they keep running into these strange social groups. One of them was like a carnival social group. They hung out there for a few issues. Then there was this social group of young people pretending to be old people. That was weird. So it's like, but nothing is ever revealed. It's always just kind of like, I mean, no individual issue is bad. It's just kind of like, I don't know what the point of it is anymore. It's this, they run, and now instead of having, we've had like individual characters run into weird social groups instead of the group, like the characters were split up. So this one pregnant girl ran into yet another social group of, I think, young people pretending to be old. I'm like, we're getting repeats of the social groups too. So it's like, I just wanted to do something.
Right.
But it's not bad. It's just kind of, I want to know what the point of it is.
It's to sell a television show, so they need to drag it out to show what each episode is, because they haven't figured out what the big mystery is yet. You got to sell the mystery, then you'll figure it out. But that's me being cynical. I know nothing about this.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't see this being made into a television show. I can't say it wouldn't be, because it would be fairly low budget. That always counts when being made into a television show. But the mystery, I always call it the TV show Lost started the genre of a TV show that the plot is what's going on in this TV show. And there was lots of TV shows like that after Lost too. It's kind of fade, and this isn't quite there, but it's kind of there. It's like, because you always know what's going on. The storytelling is very clear, but why everything happened, you don't know. Like this particular story that starts with one of our characters. I think we saw at the end. I think she's from the original group. They've been living in this forest for a little while. And I think she's the pregnant girl. And she stops living in the forest and finds this house. Now, this whole issue is about the weird things that happened to her in this house. Okay. But that's what every issue has been about. There's got to be something more than the weird thing that happens in this issue.
Does it tell you why? Does it tell you why there are no adults?
No. Doesn't tell you.
So,
it doesn't.
It's very similar to me. It sounds a lot like getting the ideas and plots from The Walking Dead. We don't know what caused it. They think they know what it is, and they never tell you.
But The Walking Dead had. I wouldn't mind that part. I was okay with that. But The Walking Dead had individual plots within that. It was like The Walking Dead always had. You never knew what started it was what started the zombie apocalypse was never part of The Walking Dead. It was never part of its plot. I'm okay with that part. A lot of people aren't. A lot of people want to know what started this. That's what they like about zombie. If they don't know what started but that was sort of like the zombie apocalypse happened. Now here are the plots. That's not what this is. This is, we have no adults. It's the most influential thing sort of in everybody's life. And here's weird things that happen because of it. But they're all kind of the same weird thing. It's just kind of like, here's this new weird group. Here's this next weird group. Here's a weird group. Here's another weird group. But the plot always is, our characters run into the weird group, have to survive the weird group, and move on. Till they get to the next weird group, have to survive the weird group until they move on. So any individual...
Here are survivors, run into a weird group of survivors, find out why that weird group of survivors is bad,
You could always understand the interpersonal. The Walking Dead was about being human. It was about human beings interacting with other human beings. This,
Right.
they're not really human beings in terms of, because they've all grown up without any adult supervision. So they're these weird imitations of human beings. Because they never act. They don't act kind of in any way you recognize, especially this plot. Right, she went into the house of these people who are acting like grown-ups. They got this one's got this big wig. She's acting like an old person, and they're taking care of this girl they found like she's, and here's this one who's trying to help her. And this is always the plot. There's always someone going, "Shh, you got to get out of here. They're going to kill you," or something like that. So it's like, and you never know why they want to kill them. So it starts out just like the other one of these kids, just like they'd be nice to her. They're like, "Ooh, this is kind of weird. They're being nice to us." All of a sudden, they're like, "Oh, they're not going to be nice. They may kill one or two of them, or whatever." And then they have to run away. Every issue is like, and then there's weird, unexpected.
If you read Rosenberg's superhero comics at Marvel, you'll find that they're equally aimless. There were some things that I kind of liked when I read them, and now I think I figured it out.
There's a good word.
Aimless is a great fill-in issue writer.
Mm-hmm. I can see what you like. I said, any individual issue is not bad. It's good. I enjoy it, but overall, it adds up to nothing. That's what's so strange. Like and another issue when they ran into young people acting like old people is like one of the things they did. If you stayed there, they found out too late is they pulled all your teeth so they can give you dentures because old people have dentures, I guess. How they know that and why they think that's a good idea and how they have a denture teeth pulling machine and it's all these ideas. Like I said, any individual's issue is good, but overall the ideas just add up to nothing. It's aimless, as Paulo just said. It seems aimless. They're not aiming at any target. They're just shooting.
I remember when he did the Punisher. And there was a big arc about Baron Zemo. And okay, what's the point? Nothing. Then the Mandarin gets shot in the head. Why did the Mandarin get shot in the head? We don't know. But if he had done one issue in which, for any particular reason, the Punisher had to fight Baron Zemo, which is admittedly not normal, but okay, let's just have him fight, whatever. It would have been used as the Punisher number 43 because Mike Baron was on vacation that month, and that was it.
Huh. Weird.
But you can't. And since the editors don't care what the writers do, they're just being traffic cops.
Yeah. I look at this. They don't even have an editor. This is their own, it's Image Comics.
Yeah, sure.
So,
but here's the thing: if he had good editors at Marvel, you would at least have learned some tools that he needed to create his own comic, which probably should have been a 4-issue miniseries, not an ongoing.
Oh, I just realized that this was a Halloween cover. I'm like, there was no Halloween in this, but at the very end, she runs from the old people house to the Halloween house. So I guess next issue we'll have the Halloween house with the Universal Monster kids. So there she is looking in the window at the Universal Monster kids kind of thing. So I guess that's coming next issue. Well, once again, they'll have a little clique built around the Halloween. Why? Who knows? But it's on my pull list, so I'll probably keep getting it. Like I said, once something else on my pull list is too traumatic to take it off. Like I said, and any individual issue is actually good. It's just aimless. There doesn't seem to be any reason for it to exist, besides for me to read an issue every month or two.
There you go. So you have 2 issues that discontinued this month.
Right.
Though they were on your pull list.
Yes.
So
That
do
was
you have
Image and Plush. What was that?
So do you have replacements for them?
Not specifically.
So how do you replace them? Are you going to go to the shop, or are you going to go through previews?
Usually I don't. If like right now, my pull list is pretty full. I'm getting 8 to 10 comics a week.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of my stuff is indie, it comes out irregularly, and I just added, like, I got Local Man #3 here. I added a couple just recently.
Okay.
So sometimes, what I do is I always kind of keep my eye open and try out first issues. And if I like the first issue, if a first issue really grabs me, like Local Man, the first issue really grabbed me, went on my pull list. Sometimes what happens is my pull list starts getting I like I said, I get an email every week that tells me what's coming into the shop. If I see I start getting maybe 3, 4, 5 books a week, I'll start looking a little harder for new books. Or if I see, like, I think I added a couple of books because I noticed that I had some books ending. I noticed that I knew Image anthology was 12 issues was ending. So like around issue 11 or 10, I'll start going, well, I wonder what's out there. And maybe I'll sample a book or two. But it's not really specific that I like. It's just kind of when I see the list when I start getting 8, 10 books a week, I stop looking to add things on. Mm-hmm. When I see I got 3, 4 books a week, I'll add the stuff on. So that's what I do in general. But like I said, I don't. I would look in comic shop news. I'd see a recommendation on YouTube, but there's fewer of those than I used to get. Someone just recommended a book to me, another Tim Seeley written book to me on this week. I saw check that one out, and the final order cutoff email I get with the list of all the books on final order cutoff. I can click on the link and it'll give me the preview's description of what that book is. So I'll look on that too. I'll go, here's boom. Like, I saw the new Hey Kids comics by Chaykin was coming out. That automatically goes on the pull list. So I got automatic stuff. Otherwise, my pull list gets, I start noticing, which also leads me to getting a ton of books sometimes, because sometimes it's just the ebb and flow of indie books. So I'm like, I'm down to 3 or 4 books. Let me add some stuff on. And then all of a sudden I'm up to 10 books this week or 12 books. I'm like, where the hell did all these comics come from? Because they all happened to come out that one week.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So who wants to do a read, rip, or slab?
I do
as well, but I gotta go check something first with my cats.
Okay, in that case, let's wait.
Okay.
We'll wait. We'll put it up as soon as Wilson is back.
Yes.
Read, rip,
Hopefully
or slab.
I have money for comics in 2 or 3 months.
Oh, that's right. You started the new job, right?
Yes.
That's good.
I still don't know what I'm gonna buy though. Probably European.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what you are in Europe. When in Europe. That'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was I just...
One of my friends just did just did a blog post on about we no longer have superhero comics in Portugal.
Uh-huh.
And frankly, I don't see anything wrong with that. There's really you can't you can't publish Marvel and DC the way you used to until the 2000 to 2003, which was an anthology with a bunch of characters.
Right.
Because what you got in an anthology with a bunch of characters was 3 or 4 cool stories. Some of them went on, and there was an ongoing story for the people who stayed with the comic every month. But nowadays, each part individually is a useless reading experience.
Tough to read on its own.
Yeah. So if you continue to, and since you can't, the only other way that you can publish a comic is if you do a version of the trade paperback. But if you're trying to do a series, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. I can see how that would be a problem.
Which goes back to my theory that Fantagraphics is about to become the most important U.S. publisher in the world.
Do they have comic book Kickstarters in Portugal?
They try, but it's not something that we really do. The guys who want to do Kickstarters here, I've told a couple of them to do it in English and try to sell to an international market.
Yeah, because there's just more and more Kickstarters over here, and I just since I bought that, I didn't realize Clover Press too, who did the Gatsby adaptation, who I got the Kickstarter Gatsby from too. They were IDW guys. So they were some of the original IDW guys who started Clover Press and a few other imprints. But I just noticed now, since I get the emails from them, Clover Press has started a partnership with Marvel. And they have Kickstarters for the Marvel art of Alex Maleev and the Marvel art of someone else. I can't remember who. So they're putting out art books with Marvel, but they're doing them as Kickstarters too. So I guess you can get the Kickstarter version of the Marvel art of Alex Maleev, and then there'll be a bookstore version.
The thing is, the numbers that you usually get with sales numbers you usually get with Kickstarters, they're not too far off of the overall numbers that we have in Portugal. So if they get 100 and 200 backers, it will be the same thing that they could expect to sell in the first 6 months of their book being in print. So if they have 200 people already interested in their book, they'll overprint by 50. 200 customers are satisfied. 50 who just wanted to sample first will have the chance. You don't have the overhead, and you don't have all the distribution. So it would probably be cheaper to produce, and I guess for the Americans it wouldn't, but because
because I was saying that with the American one, it might be the same thing where you say the initial 1,000 copies you sell is pretty close to your final, but you can't reach those 1,000 people except through Kickstarter here. Like if you probably couldn't sell that same, like I don't know how many. I would have to look to see how many copies they sold of that Gatsby book through Kickstarter, but it was probably more than they could sell through comic shops. But I expect that I think they expect to sell some to libraries and schools and stuff too. But I think selling them through Kickstarter guarantees their original sales, and even though they have to ship them all out or whatever, I don't think they would sell that. I don't think they'd sell that. However, probably only 200 copies, even through Diamond. So I think Kickstarter works here because I don't know. I guess the reach is just better than through comic shops. All right, let's see this. What do we got here?
French edition, French newsstand edition. Yeah, French newsstand editions from July 1985.
Wow.
Akim is a Tarzan clone. Kalar is a Jungle Jim clone. and Wham was a war comic. I don't know if the stories were French or British.
Ooh.
But they're most likely foreign because the publisher was Aredi Artima.
Or I know what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to read Akim because that looks like the most interesting story. I'm not sure what's going on there, but Tarzan's taken on a very colorful knight and what it appears to be a mysterious fighter from the east. So I want to know what's going on in that story. And Kalar, I think I'm going to slab because I like that cover better than the Wham cover.
Mm-hmm.
Which the Wham cover is still pretty cool, but the Kalar cover is a little more comic booky. So it's a little more up my alley.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why in that Kalar he bothered to draw his hat hanging from his head, unless that's part of his character.
I don't really know. I should check.
If I were to draw that cover, that Kalar cover, there is no way I would ever think to have a guy not wearing a hat, but having a chin strap on that hat and having the chin strap holding it on as it goes over his back. That just seems like an odd thing, unless like
and the other thing, you have the main character with his back to the reader.
Yeah. And you can't even see his back. You can see his hat.
So I'm probably going to read the Kalar because I want to slap that Akim. I just want to have people look at that cover and be perplexed.
Yeah. Because the only thing perplexing about the Kalar cover is that hat. And what is the guy in Wham holding? Is that a gun?
It may be a rifle, but it's not very well drawn.
Yeah,
of course, that rifle will do absolutely nothing to that plane.
Gun. Yeah, plane's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I would
That's why I think it's British.
I would slab Wham, read Kalar, and Tarakim.
Ah, man.
Really?
Yeah, there's something about the Kalar cover that I really like, and I don't know if it's the you can't really see the trade dress too well, but it reminds me of like the EC books.
Yeah,
because you also have that kind of logo on the side as well.
I thought of EC too when I saw that.
And there's just something about that cover I like, but I'm more interested in reading that story. Akim, the moment I looked at it, it's like I don't like it. Tear it up. Nothing for it. And Wham, just because there's nothing left, so I'm going to just slab it.
But and you like the cover better than the Akim cover.
Yeah. And there's nothing really wrong about the Akim cover, but I see it and automatically I'm like, I don't like it. I don't know what it is, but I'm looking at that and it's like, nope.
I don't think you appreciate the zaniness. Why I look at it and say, I'm intrigued by the zaniness because that's a zany cover.
And I usually go for this zany, but for some reason that one is like, it does nothing for me. I'm actually turned off by the artwork.
No, I knew when I chose
the zaniness of it, but the art itself bothers me.
I just
I knew when I chose
the yellow guy's sword is broken.
Yeah.
How's he going to fight him with that?
Maybe he's bringing the sword for Barrett.
Okay, so I knew that when I chose these three, I knew that I wanted to rip Wham. I was hoping somebody would comment on the fact that it's a comic called Wham, and that's not George Michael.
Sorry, I'm a purist. I'm a Wham UK fan. I don't like it after they went with just Wham.
But one thing I could do with that cover, and that's where the dolphin goes.
Ah, the dolphin instead of the plane?
Yes.
See, I might put the dolphin instead of the snake on Kalar. So he's shooting the dolphin.
dolphin?
Yeah,
The
I mean, if
dolphin
you
is
saw a dolphin
threatening
in the jungle, you would be freaked out.
Yeah, dolphin attacks you in the jungle, you'll be freaked out.
I would put the dolphin on the Wham cover, but replace the guy with the dolphin and give him the gun. And maybe even keep the cap
Ooh.
and have the dolphin be the assassin.
And the leather gloves. The leather glove will have to be in a fin.
Yes.
I just know that guy on the Wham cover is called Pierre.
Pierre
His name is
Wham?
Pierre. His name is Pierre. It's a French comic. He has the hat. He doesn't shave, and he's at war.
He looks like Deja Vu. Have we met before? What movie was that with Val Kilmer? Top Secret. That was
Top
it.
Secret. Yep.
And one of the guys from the French Resistance was the butler from Downton Abbey.
Was he?
Yeah.
Wow.
Man, and that Kim cover even has like a token woman penciled in at the very bottom. It's like, we need a damsel in distress. All right, we'll put her down here.
We've had no comment from. Is anybody watching this? We usually get a couple of comments.
Knowing our usual, we haven't done enough of these lately. We're gonna have to do more. I got some in the can. We'll do some more next week, so our rip, read, and tear commenters will come back. But that Kim cover looks a little haphazard too. The composition is like everything just landed where it landed.
Yeah, it
There
looked like pickup art, and it's like, we got to make a cover quick. Like
Yeah.
they changed the logo on it.
But a lot of these French small format publishers, they did very busy covers.
Yeah, I liked it.
Because they hired
busy
Italians, and the Italian covers, the Italian cover artists made more money working for the French publisher than they did working for the Italian publisher.
Really?
So I guess they wanted to make sure that they got hired again. I'm gonna put all my work into this cover.
I forgot to show you. You remember my 9.8 clone story from last week?
Yeah.
Well, this week I got in the unslabbed version of it, plus the unslabbed, uncolored version of it.
Ooh. Are you going to color it?
I'm going to have the greatest clone #1 collection ever.
You're going to have them all.
I already have the greatest Skybound clone 5th anniversary collection ever. These two, I think, with shipping and tax, cost me $15. Well, for the two of them, I was like, all right, I have to get an unslabbed one now. I don't know why. Just so my clone #1 collection grows. You would think I was a big clone #1 fan, wouldn't you?
3 copies and none that you've read.
No, I've read them. I actually, this was on my pull list back in the day. I have all my original 20 issues over there. That's how it became on my radar, and I do like the cover. It was the first Juan Jose Rip art I'd ever seen, who has since gone on to do lots of other stuff. He's not quite a name, but who is these days? But and this is very much a. I'll show you the This stuff. This cover has very much a Jeff Darrow look, with all these signs in the background and all this chaos going on. So I actually really like the cover too.
Yeah, it's a nice looking cover.
Yeah.
Very detailed. Yeah.
I'm going to have to reread the series because This was one of those series I think was originally a 6-issue mini, and then they made it ongoing because it was successful.
I don't think it looks like Jeff Darrow, although it does look like. What if J. Scott Campbell tried to draw like Jeff Darrow?
Yeah, it's Jeff Darrow only in the amount of graphomania is in there, and the fact that there's all these signs in the background that say things. The actual drawing is not that much like Jeff Darrow.
Or maybe Kevin, no, not J. Scott Campbell, Kevin McGuire.
There's
a little bit of
Kevin. Kevin McGuire more than by way of Kevin. By the way, did you see the big comic book news this week? Where is it here? IDW cuts 2/5 of employees, executives, and delist from the stock exchange. But don't worry, nepotism is going to save them.
Did they resurrect Chip Goodman?
Yeah, Chip Goodman's taken over, except instead of Chip Goodman, it's who is it? Okay, what did it say here? Best known the Jonas family owns them. I don't think they're any relation to the Jonas brothers. But the father is one of them. The father, I guess, makes the money in the Jonas family. But who's the guy? Davidi, Davidi Jonas, was recently elected to the board of IDW stockholders and was named executive chairman and vice chairman of the board. Will be taking on the role of chief executive officer, replacing Alan Grafman. It says Jonas is a member of the family that already collectively owns a controlling interest in the CIDW's equity board, as his father, Howard Jonas, serves as IDW's chairman and chairman of the board. So don't worry, nepotism is going to save the company because the father's the chairman of the board and the son is the executive, whoever.
Okay.
So they're going to save the company a lot of money by firing people and then do I don't know what. But I guess that's why Usagi Yojimbo moved to back to Dark Horse.
Oh well,
but
it was good.
That's where and that's also where they said that. Jim Lee said, "Where did he say the original founders of IDW have already moved on as venture capital took over." And during the pandemic, the company furloughed and then laid off many editorial employees, a number of whom set up their own publishers, such as Opus Comics, Clover Press, and Syzygy Publishing. So Opus Comics is the one I've been buying those Frank Frazetta comics from. And, of course, Clover Press has been doing Gatsby and other things. So I've been buying stuff from the IDW editors and didn't know it.
What about Scott Dunbier?
He's still there, I think they said, because they mentioned the artist edition line that he does. Right. So I think he's still there.
Probably the only profitable line they have.
They said that all their licenses left real quickly. That's one of the reasons they had trouble. But I'm pretty sure they left. Star Trek. They got some notion that things weren't right out there. I'm sure they didn't leave because things were all roses and sunshine.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they had already lost Hasbro. I think they still have a Star Trek, but probably not for long.
Yeah.
The thing is, what are they going to publish? Because they're not going to have anything that's a big name to attract readers.
Someone started a creator-owned line with them too, and I haven't heard. Who was that? I think they mentioned it here. They currently publish Dungeons and Dragons, Star Trek, Magic the Gathering, Sonic the Hedgehog, My Little Pony, a line of creator-owned comics show run by Scott Snyder. and acquired small press publisher Top Shelf Productions, which brought them graphic novels From Hell, Lost Girls, Leaving Extraordinary Gentlemen, and March. They also published the industry-leading archive projects artist editions from senior editor Scott Dunbier. Dunbier, however you say his name.
I always said Dunbar.
Yeah, Dunbier.
Yeah, I always pronounced it Dunbar. He's never corrected me, so I always thought it was.
Okay,
it was
that must be it.
Yeah, I'm looking at their catalog of stuff, and I'm actually surprised they have Sonic. I thought that was Archie.
Oh, not for a while.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Godzilla and Power Rangers. That I was picking up some of that stuff, but the Rocketeer, Star Trek.
Yeah.
So they got, they have big titles, but I could easily see all these going to other companies pretty quickly and easily.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons is part of the Hasbro stuff.
And isn't Scott Snyder also part of that new brewery? What are they called? That new comic book publishing company that
Oh, the one
I
that
can't remember their name.
Yeah, I forget the name.
Has something to do with craft beer brewing. Artisanal? No. I don't remember. But I think Scott Snyder's involved with that too, isn't he? So how many lines is he curating? As many as they'll pay him for.
Yeah. I think that's exactly it.
Oh, by the way, since it's sitting here on my desk, this teeny tiny eraser that I got a few weeks ago gets a good grade from me.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it turns out to work real well, especially on these little 6x9 drawings I do. Where's one of them? Something like one of these little drawings. If you want to erase right up to a line, is really accurate. So I got to say, I got to get some refills for this. Not that I'm anywhere close to finishing it right now, but I'm like, it gets a good grade from me, so I'll add it to my eraser arsenal. I'll take out the eraser shield less and use this. Or use them together sometimes. To be really accurate in my erasing.
Have you
Which is
tried
usually when I have a lot of intersecting straight lines.
Have you tried these Vanish?
Which one is that? I may have. Let me see.
They're made in Korea, and they're
The name looks familiar.
They're
I'm always buying new erasers.
They're almost like kneaded erasers, but they're not. And it's a white eraser, and I just really enjoy it, especially for sketch cards and stuff like that. It's becoming like my main eraser for almost everyday stuff.
Here's one I tried out: a black foam eraser, and this one's pretty good. I have to say, I've been. You know what I saw? This is the craziest thing ever. I want to get one just because it's the craziest thing ever. It's I was on the art site looking at Jerry's Artorama. I was on. I got to put in a big order at Jerry's Artorama to get some canvases for this summer, and they have a little tiny. It's probably, how big is it? It's bigger than that. It's like a little, anything that size. Maybe about this size. A vacuum cleaner for vacuuming up the erasers on your desk. It's this little palm size battery-powered USB rechargeable vacuum cleaner for about $12. I'm like, really? You can for someone who's such a neat freak that have to vacuum up the erasers on their desk? Wow.
Because this has become too hard.
I'm like, I gotta get one. I kind of want one now, just because.
I get it. You know, it's one of those things like that's incredibly crazy, but I get it. I think
nutty.
Jerry's
You're right. That's too hard.
But that's too hard. Or if I want to get fancy, I use my brush.
Yeah, me too. Hold on. When I get fancy, I can move. I can do that. Yep. But no, you can get a teeny tiny little vacuum cleaner now. That's just nutty. A teeny tiny little vacuum. I'm like, I think I want one. I've got no need for it.
Oh yeah, there's some art tools that you see and go, I want that. There's no reason to get it, but I want that. It's like recently I bought from Five Below, just because it is an art tool, is this easel.
Okay.
So it is a wooden easel.
Yep.
It has a lip.
Lip on it.
And it's a very simple device.
Right.
But I kind of like it. And I thought,
yeah,
it would be cool to put on one of my other tables if I wanted to, like, prop up a comic book or something on it to take photos for, the stuff that I sell on eBay. Or even, I haven't tried working on it yet. I got some sketch cards I need to do. And I was like, oh, I think this is pretty cool because I can put it on my art desk, which is already a little bit elevated.
Right.
But I don't want to elevate the whole thing. I can actually have this smaller one for the smaller sketch cards or the postcard type artwork that I do. And again, it was like $5 for a piece of wood. And it's like, let me give that a try. Because sometimes you just see an art tool and go, I'll give that a try.
I have something similar to that, a little more fancy. I haven't used it in years because I haven't made any 8x10 acrylic paintings in years. But I used it a lot because I haven't done a lot of paintings on it. Because I made most of my paintings before I got it. But it's a little easel like that, but it's good for the 8x10 canvases if I want them up more rather than laying flat on my desk. So I would you put one up there, put it down, put it up. So that one I had did come in handy, but I haven't used it in a while. But it's like right now at Jerry's Artorama, my basket is up to about $270 of art supplies. Art supplies are freaking expensive.
Yeah, they definitely are.
But that's when I'd buy something like that $12 vacuum. It's like, I'm already at $270. It's freaking another $12.
Yeah, that's very true. And I have something similar to that I bring to cons. But the one that I have has. I'll see. I think I have it in the other room. What I have, it has drawers that I could put the art supplies into.
Okay.
And then the drawers shut together with magnets on it, so it can be closed. But it's basically something similar to that, where it is a portable little suitcase that basically turns into an easel.
Yeah.
And I find that I've been taking to some cons lately just because I basically will have an easel. I have the tools right there. And then at the end of the day, I just close up the drawers, put everything away, and just take it that way.
Nice and portable.
Exactly. Which I'll be using this weekend because I have a small con in the city.
Where are you going this weekend? Is it the high school one?
Yeah, the High School of Art and Design is having a convention that they call the Fanfare New York. Matter of fact, when I was at the comic book shop, they had a postcard for it. Okay. So it's this weekend, and from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. both Saturday and Sunday. And so I'll have a table in Artist Alley, and then I'll be doing a talk with a couple of other freelancers talking about freelancing.
Didn't Al Jaffe go there?
What's that?
Didn't Al Jaffe go there?
Yeah, I think he did.
Because there's that picture of him and Kurtzman from the High School of Art and Design from back in the 30s or whenever they went. So be sure to mention Al Jaffe because he just died at 103 or something, right?
Yeah.
Did you see?
Yeah, I did see the notice when it popped up because he only retired fairly recently.
Yeah.
So it's like I think he invented it.
Since he died, they were writing about it. He said it was supposed to be a one-off, but it proved so popular they kept having him do him.
Right.
Al
Jaffe. And then, he worked on that and then he retired. Almost the same thing like Charles Schultz. Once he stopped the strip, it's like as an artist, I guess if you don't retire, you just got to keep working.
Let's see, another comic I got this week, Local Man, which is designed to look like it's ripped open to the first page. I'm not quite sure why.
Oh, looks like a Grant Morrison Doom Patrol.
Is that what it is? Because the other side, the flip side, is the 90s version. There's always a backup story of his 90s superhero team, Local Man. But this has been good. Who does this? Tim Seeley. Well, this is why the guy on my channel, on my my video, recommended another Tim Seeley book that I think is a 6-issue mini that issue 3 is out. I forget the name, Hex something. If you look on my video, this week's video, you can see. But I'll have to look. I haven't checked that one out. But he said, "Oh, you should check this out. You might like it." But there's Crossjack was his superhero name. Now he's barred from doing any superhero stuff, so he's going out in a ski mask to investigate something. But everybody knows it's Crossjack because he's in his old hometown. But good issue. This first 3 issues of this have been solid. Sort of a mystery, returning home story. You're not a hero in your hometown. Well, he was disgraced for. There's this guy right here is the beloved leader of the super team named Crusader, I think his name is. And I think he's like a Christian fundamentalist too. I don't know how much of that gets out to the public, but he's an asshole Christian fundamentalist. And there are people who don't like him too. So Local Man has been a good series, I have to say. If you like superhero mystery stuff, because it's not really a straight up superhero story, because there's flashbacks to superheroics, but he's not really a superhero now since he got kicked out of the team and isn't allowed to do anything. But thoroughly enjoying it.
That backup. So is it a flip book or that's just the back of the book?
It's just a backup. Well, what it is the backup, the 6-page stories, is stories of when he was Crossjack in the 90s. Right. So they kind of relate to the stuff that happens in the backup relates to the stuff that it gives you background of stuff that's happening.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question. Are the stories connected or not? Which since they are, I think that's a great idea.
Because we found out at the end of last issue, the reason he was disgraced, because it turned out he was having an affair with Crusader's wife. So in this issue, we get the backup. It's not actually a flip book, so I have to turn it back the other way. In this issue, pardon me, it is a flip book. I was wrong. In this issue, we get the story of him fighting in the 90s, and Crossjack's wife is making a pass at him. And it's sort of the end of the world with all these demons taking over. And his wife is is kind of telling him that it's okay with the Crusader that you sleep with me. So it's kind of the end of the world, and you see where they first hook up in the backup story. So that's kind of cool that they give you that. So things that happen in the front story, you flash back to where they kind of started in the backup story.
Oh, okay.
So it's like they're doing a good job with it. Oh, Brett Booth does this cover. A 90s image guy.
Mhm. Yeah,
He
that
can
cover is
certainly-
so 90s image. And I probably
Even
would have bought it in the 90s.
Even the logo.
Yep.
But what's weird about this too is usually when they do something like this, the splash page is what's behind it. I was surprised when they didn't do that, because often they do this, and then you open it up, and the splash page is this right here.
Yeah, I believe
But they
John
didn't do that
Byrne
with
did that with the Fantastic Four.
Right? Yeah. So who knows? But nice cover. At least I like this half. This half's a little weird.
Yeah, because that man part of it is from the other logo, from the 90s
Right.
logo.
What else do I have here? We have the Travis Charest issue of the Ambassadors, number 3. Which I was a little disappointed with his art. I don't think he's particularly good at ordinary stuff. I've always been a Travis Charest fan. I loved the run he did with Alan Moore on Wildcats. There's nothing wrong with this art. It's just kind of, there's a lot of lines in it. Other than that, it's a little bland. I found his older stuff where he used to play more with forms and stuff. Like, the superhero stuff is cool, but that kid in a t-shirt is like, yeah, it's a lot of lines. Wasn't bad or anything. I'm not telling you. I'm not saying that. But it just, his art seems more generic and less stylish than it used to be. I don't know what it is.
It's the monthly schedule.
No, he's only doing one issue.
Oh, is he? Okay.
As a matter of fact, there's more work in these than he used. Work in terms of teeny tiny little lines, but most of them are kind of pointless. It's like he's like when he does this open stuff, like that girl's costume right there that's open and white. That's terrific because he gets the shape and the form down. But when he does stuff like this kid's jeans, he just draws little teeny tiny lines in all the folds. It was kind of like, eh. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. I just find it a little bland at times. Like the fact that he draws every single rock here. It's like, did he really have to spend all that time to make the rubble that delineated? He couldn't. And it's not like it's stylish rubble. It's just rubble. So it's like, why would he spend all that time making rubble? And even like, the rubble right up here with the car. Why would he spend so much time making that rubble? Could have just blacked it out and spent that time somewhere else. I don't know.
Don't draw feet, draw rubble.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I just remember him being more stylish. There seems to be more rubble drawing, little lines, and less style. But I like, I'm nitpicking. It's still good. I'll have to go back and look at his older stuff, see what I liked about it. Any Travis Charest fans here?
Oh, I kind of liked his Wildcats, but then he got real slow.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a good idea that Charest and Scott Lobdell got off of Wildcats at the same time. because of what it became, which was a treatise on economics.
I stayed away from the Lobdell Wildcats.
Oh.
I was like, "Oh, cool! Travis Charest's coming back to Wildcats." I was like, "Oh, Scott Lobdell's writing it. Oh well, I guess I'm not buying it." I'm just not a fan of his writing. I'm trying to think.
Sure, he was making it up as he went along. He wasn't drawing. He wasn't even drawing from any script. And there's times when the storytelling was really going nowhere.
That reminds me. Let me see if I have this here. Do I still have that? Do. No, I don't. I was once again. It was a Robert Birnbaum post on the People's History. I can't even remember what the post was about, but as sort of almost an incidental aside in the post, he wrote. He mentioned Joe Maneely's tragic death in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain immediately went, New York City? He died on the PATH train, I thought. If you die on the PATH train, you don't die in, not the PATH train, New Jersey Transit. If you die in New Jersey Transit, you don't die in New York City. So I asked the question, where did he die? Like, and I'm like, I just said something like point in fact, where did he die? Because I thought it was New Jersey. Blah, blah, blah. No one answered me. So that night I was talking to my mother, who has been doing family tree stuff from the 70s and has accessed all the databases and things. So I was like, can you find Joe Maneely's obituary? Turns out Joe Maneely didn't have an obituary. But she found
I looked for it as well several times.
She found newspaper articles on him.
Oh.
So I got the newspaper article over there. I posted it in the section where Joe Maneely died because the headline was, 5 people died this weekend, and he was one of them. And he died they found his body in Linden, New Jersey. So that's where he died. They fell off the New Jersey Transit train coming out of New York City. So, for those of you who want to know, Joe Maneely died in Linden, New Jersey. And in another newspaper article my mother found, I don't think she sent me this one, his wife was suing the state for $750,000. We didn't find out if she won the case or not, but she never remarried because my mother found her obituary. Is that Chris G. Russo?
It is.
He's trying to sign in.
Once more, I have to point out, American internet sucks.
32 years old in 1958.
Yeah.
When he fell off the train.
Missed out on working on Ant-Man or something like that.
Yeah. Good evening, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
What's up?
Hello, guys. How's it going?
Going pretty good.
Right.
And who's on blast? Who's on blast tonight?
Joe Maneely. We were just discussing the death of Joe Maneely.
Oh, man. You putting him on blast after he died?
We're waiting to see who you put on blast. That's what the excitement's going to be. Who is Chris Girusso going to put on blast tonight?
My blast was Eric Larson's Savage Dragon.
The nudity caught him by surprise.
It's been decades since I read a Savage Dragon issue, and I picked this one up, and I was not ready for it.
Oh, yep.
I was.
I think
quite
Jared,
surprised.
you were talking about it last week, right?
Yes. I think that's when I got it last week.
I
With
mean,
a
it
woman
factors
fighting
into the
what was
factors into
that?
the plot. It factors into the
It does.
plot, like
Into the fight scene.
in a way I've never seen before.
Oh, we have a Scott Lobdell comment. Scott Lobdell write movies that get good ratings. Yeah, he wrote that. It's funny because I forget the name of the movie he wrote. That it's a time loop movie.
Happy Death Day.
Happy Death Day. And I
I
am a
never saw it, but
fan
I know
of
the name
time
of it.
loop. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's two of them. There's Happy Death Day 1 and 2.
Oh, okay.
Or else they have two different names, maybe. It's not 1 and 2 because I watched the second one first. And I didn't know it was Scott Lobdell. Or maybe just and I remember I can't remember if he wrote both of them or not. I think once again I found out I like time loop movies for some reason. They're like a genre I like. Groundhog Day, that Tom Cruise one, whatever other ones you got. So I just happened to find Happy Death Day time loop movie. I'll watch this one. So I started watching it, and it's like the very beginning, it recapped stuff, and then went on with the movie, and I was like, this seems like it's a sequel because it didn't have 2 at the end. That must be it. Whatever one I watched. So I was like, and it was okay. And I'm like, oh, there's another one. I'll check out the. And I started watching the first one, and it was terrible. I was just like, oh man, this is just badly written. And I looked it up, and Scott Lobdell was the writer, and I was like, ooh. No wonder I didn't like it. I'm not a fan of his writing. He wrote both and created the characters. Okay. I don't remember if I made it all the way through the second one either, but I remember not liking the first one at all when I went back to watch it. Happy Death Day, and I can't remember I don't think it was 1 and 2. Otherwise, I would have known it was a sequel. I think it's got a different movie, different name. But they weren't, god awful or anything. They were just like, hey, I got better things to do with my time. I'll watch it. Have you ever seen? I forget the name of it. The time loop movie with the guy who plays Red on that '70s show. Pardon me, it's not a movie; it's a short.
No, I
I
have
have
not.
to look up what the name of it is. It's the guy who played. They say it's what inspired Groundhog Day, so it's from the '80s. I have a copy of it, a digital copy of it, but it's a short, so it's only like 15 minutes, and he's in a time loop that's an hour long. So it's like he keeps going back to the beginning of his lunch hour. And it's more of a horror story because when you're taught on an hour time loop, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
You're right. The second was better. Yeah, I think I liked the second and then went back and tried to watch the first and then didn't. I was like, I can't watch this one. And that's when I discovered Scott Lobdell was the writer. But I think I did make it all the way through the second one.
No, okay.
Whatever its name was.
The Lobdell comic that I like the most is The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix.
Okay.
Which has Gene Hart.
I was gonna say, who did it? Gene Ha. I remember it having distinct art.
Yeah.
Gene Ha.
It's funny because Gene.
Did he do the covers on that too? I remember like really scratchy lines on the covers.
I think he did the covers.
But I don't remember that being his style on the inside. I remember being.
Oh, no, he didn't ink himself.
Oh, okay.
Which is probably good. Otherwise, there would have been a 6 month gap between issues.
Roy Thomas would have had to send those issues to the Philippines to get them done. and not told Gene Ha.
But Gene Ha. So Gene Ha came to Comic-Con Portugal in December. I got to do his panel, and I told him he does the most exciting talking head scenes that I've ever seen. But I made it as a compliment because I showed him I showed him one of the Starkman comics he did, set in the past. The one where the Shade and Bobo Benetti have to fight some villains because they want to kill Starman back in the 50s.
He's the one who's been writing lately, right?
Gene Ha? Yeah, he did a graphic novel.
Red Mother,
something like that. Yeah.
I think I've been buying. Let me just make sure I'm talking about the right person. Where's Red Mother?
There's a scene that Starman where they're in the restaurant.
I'm thinking about Jeremy Juan.
But there's a scene in that restaurant
too. Now he's been writing. What was that?
There's a scene in that Starman comic when they're in the restaurant and they're talking and eating, and you can see them. It's like you're watching them having a meal. And what would be common is that somebody would for people to draw scenes at the table is to take snapshots. They're talking, and you have a giant wall of text over them holding a glass in front of you. But here they're picking up the glass. They're changing. They're changing their position on the table. There are things that now there's less food on the plate.
Yeah, a lot of times, like when I was complaining about the Travis Charest stuff in here a little bit, when superhero guys aren't used to drawing ordinary things, sometimes it looks really weak. I always say that, like, was it Hawkeye? Not that David Aja was bad at drawing stuff, but those sort of ordinary scenes that who wrote, was it Brubaker who wrote that? Fraction. When they were doing sort of that ordinary day stuff with superheroes, to me that always, and people love it. Like there's other people who love it. And for me, that always falls short because I read the guys who do ordinary day stuff full time. So it's like, your Matt Fraction's ordinary day stuff isn't going to be as good as Alex Robinson's ordinary day stuff because that's what he does. It isn't going to be as good as, Rick Geary's it's not going to be as good as Peter Baggs' everyday stuff. Because that's what they do full time. That's their genre. So it's kind of like when superhero stuff put a little bit of that in and everybody goes crazy. Like, oh, it's so great. It's, Hawkeye going to get pizza. I'm always like, really? You can read stories about people going to get pizza all the time. You don't want to. But when Hawkeye goes and gets pizza, you think it's the greatest thing in the world.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I always thought the greatest thing in the world when I was reading comics growing up, starting, was when the X-Men played baseball.
Yeah.
And those little slices of life came in, and they play softball and stuff like that, and those were interesting.
Yes, but if you were to do that now, you wouldn't find it as interesting. That's just what I'm saying. There's once you expanded your horizons, you realize that you could there's probably 16 Japanese graphic novels about people playing softball.
And only on softball.
And only on softball. And they're probably better than any X-Men softball scene ever. You couldn't find that in the States, but I'm sure in Japan there are comics dedicated to playing.
I challenge you to find something cooler than Peter Rasputin transforming into the human metals colossus in mid-swing for a jolt of power as he crushes that ball out of the park.
Well, that's an Art Adams drawing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't know.
If it was in Adams, it would have been
I would have guessed Ramita Jr., but
Junior, yeah, during his Paul Smith kind of style.
I don't know. Could have been Paul Smith.
Could have been Paul Smith as well, yeah.
I think Cockrum did it way back in the beginning. He didn't do the transformation thing, but they were playing. I think did he start the softball thing with the X-Men? I have a vague memory of it. I don't really know. I haven't looked at those. But
I haven't seen a lot of them,
know-
but I understood it was like a recurring thing.
right. That's why I think it may have started under Cockrum.
Yeah, I think it was Claremont's idea.
Because no artist is going to want to draw superheroes playing softball. You know it wasn't the artist's idea.
Well, these games tended to last like 2 or 3 pages.
Yeah. It's usually how the story would open up. They're relaxing, and then all of a sudden the world's going to come to an end.
Because they got to play softball. That's the trigger for the world ending.
Right.
If only they wouldn't play softball.
Yeah, you guys need to stop.
Why is there a shiny cover over there?
Those damn mutants and their softball playing.
Oh. I just realized, I was like, why do I see a comic in a comic book bag where there's not one supposed to be? It's the one where I didn't figure out where to file it.
Oh, okay.
What to file it under. Larry, I think I'm going to make a Larry Todd section where this can go. Because I don't have a dope section.
You could put it
I
in
don't
your
have a habit. Gardening. There we go. I need a gardening section. I am sure there are Japanese comics on gardening too.
Sure there is.
About
I'm not
becoming
so
the
sure.
best gardener ever.
My father is a master gardener.
These are my father's gardening shears.
What are you working on tonight, Chris?
Officer Clawson.
Some more inking?
No, I'm doing some revisions on the pencils draft,
Okay.
which I didn't know I was supposed to be doing. I thought I was supposed to just jump right to inks.
Are
But
they
they wanna see
editorial
another-
revisions?
What's that?
Are they editorial revisions?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
I thought they just wanted me to incorporate everything as I inked it, but they want
They want to see it.
they want something to send around in like for official proofreading.
Right. I see. You were just going to do it as you go along. They're like, no. Do that first.
Yeah.
I see.
I also got my comps this week from one of the books. Geronimo Stilton from Paper Cuts.
All right. Let's make you bigger.
Although
Hold
I
on.
did not edit this whole book. I mean, I did not letter the whole book.
But you lettered part of it. Mouse House of the Future, does that say?
Mouse House of the Future.
And it looks like it's coming after him. Oh, the hijinks.
Oh, yeah. It's always about the hijinks. It always opens up with him dealing with stuff. And then I do not know, because I know there's a cartoon show, but I don't know if this comes from the cartoon itself. But I usually don't get, because while I'm lettering it, I don't get to see that back material. So I lettered like the opening 10 pages of the story.
Okay.
But when I was flipping through it when I first got it, it's like I have no memory of this story. And I realized I did not do the whole thing.
That'll do it.
Exactly. It was one of those things where it's like, I'm opening it up and it's like I have no memory of it. Was it that I just
I don't
rushed
remember
through it?
doing it because I didn't do it.
But my name's in it. It was nice, and it's the first time, I guess, this is coming from Mad Cave directly instead of from whoever Paper Cuts used to send it, and
Okay.
they just packaged it different, and not anything wrong with it. It was just like the packaging is different. So usually they just send it in a regular big box. This
Right.
time they send it in one of the Gemini mailers. And it was like, oh, this is neat. It's different, but it's not
Yeah.
anything bad. It was just they changed the mail.
It's like they're a different company. I didn't
Completely.
expect this. Did Paper Cuts have an office?
They had an office in Manhattan. I couldn't tell you where because I only visited ever once, and I do not know if they closed the office during the pandemic and then never opened it up again. But they did have an office in Manhattan. I visited once. It was like in the back of one of these downtown buildings that has been an office building since like the 30s, just because
Right.
of the deco and stuff like that. And you walked in, and it kind of looked like, if I remember correctly, it looked like a 1930s detective office where everything is the wood paneling type of stuff. You know, the furniture is updated and computers and stuff like that, but you could tell that it was in an old building.
Okay.
Let's see if the address is in here. But I only ever visited once, and it
Yeah, I was
had
wondering if after they got bought, they kept the office open even, or they just incorporated them with Mad Cave.
yeah. There's nothing here to indicate where they're located, or nothing that I can see where they're located.
Right. I got one more thing this week that I didn't read yet. It's the one thing I haven't read yet, but it's Love and Rockets, the latest one, which was out last week, but my comic shop owner left it at home. There's the Jaime cover. Because what happens is, and there's the Beto cover, and there's always one cover you can buy online, an alternate version you can buy online that's got it's got a Beto cover on the front and a Jaime cover on the back, and they switch it every month. But my comic shop owner, Roy, he lives up in Orange County, and of course the comic shop is in Rockland County. So he has the comics delivered to his house, where he sorts through them all, puts the pull list customers stuff in, and then he brings them all in Wednesday morning. For some reason, he's like, I didn't bring Love and Rockets with me. He had like 2 or 3 books, which only 3 customers get Love and Rockets, and he's like, those 9 books just aren't here. I left them at home. Like, oh, okay. Guess I'll get it next week. So this was
This
next
guy
week.
sounds like a real jabroni.
Yeah. Chris is putting him on blast.
Finally we got to it.
Leaving that issue of Love and Rockets at home. What are you, a jabroni?
Total jabroni.
Jabroni. But yeah, it's another issue of Love and Rockets. I'm sure it'll be good. But as much as I enjoy buying it in individual issues, if you want to start reading Love and Rockets, get the collected editions. There's so many collected editions. Pick up one of them, and you'll get because anyone who's reading this, though it's always been made this way as a periodical, as individual issues, they don't really treat it that way. Like if they got 12 pages, if they got, if their story is 18 pages for the month and it's part of a 300-page story, they just, end. It just, there's no cliffhangers. It just kind of stops and then starts again next issue. So if you're going to try out Love and Rockets, there's enough easy to get trade paperbacks that I'd say start with one of those, any one of those. Or get the digital version. What was that?
Are they their monthly periodicals with them, or
monthly is generous?
Okay.
This is about 2 or 3 times a year. And it's like Beto is faster than Jaime. So Beto's got all sorts of like sub-series. And he's had mini-series. What was the name of he's got one series that's been coming out for a couple of years, Something Illustrated. It's just, it's a comic book that the Beto, the one brother, does. Like it's the Hernandez brothers, and they each do their own series. Gilbert / Beto and Jaime Hernandez. And like Beto has Psychodrama Illustrated. That's the name of it. I think there's 7 issues of it out. And like the last time an issue came out, I'm like, they're still publishing this? So I guess whenever he finishes stuff, he just publishes it as Psychodrama Illustrated, and it's in there.
Okay.
And it's often the same sort of stuff that's in Love and Rockets. So I just think he needs more pages than Jaime does. So if he comes out with other series.
Yeah, because I was always curious, because I remember around the time Love and Rockets came out, and was that just constantly going, or is each of the groups of stories like 300 pages type of thing?
This is actually volume 4. Volume 1 was the original. That went about 47 magazine-sized issues. Then volume 2 was comic book size. I forget how many issues that went. 20. Volume 3 was like manga size, and it was thicker. That came out like once a year. And now volume 4, they're back to the original magazine size. And they have collected editions of all of it. Like I think last year, the year before, like this is Luba. But I got like the 3 volumes of it off eBay last year, the year before, because they have this all in one big thick volume, but it's not this full size. So I was like, and you see, I got a library copy. So I was like, I was deciding, and I always had that like Luba, which I took out of the library like twice over the years, and I always had it on my like Amazon list to get someday my own copy of it. And then one day I was like, I don't know, and then it went out of print and went up in price, and I was like, you know what? And it says on it, the Luba of the big book collects these 3 books. So I was like, well, let me see how much those 3 books are. And I have different versions of it either, but I found like, the full size versions of it on eBay for like $10, $12 a book. So like, you know what? That's what I'm going with. And just because I like the oversizedness of them. I'm getting lost looking through them. I got to put them back. Oh, and like the Jaime stuff I got years ago in these giant volumes. There's 2 low cost, the Maggie and Hopi stories. When did this one come out? This is the first one. I think these might be out of print, but they're terrific volumes because they're full size. Yeah, this one came out in 2004. So there's 2 volumes of it that collects all his Maggie and Hopi stuff from the first, 20, 30 years. Low cost and low cost 2. And this one is actually a little narrower because this is the comic book sized stuff, not the magazine sized stuff. And this one came out in 2000 and where is it? 2009. So if you have those two books, you have all the Jaime stuff up to 2009, the Maggie and Hopi stuff. There's of course been more since, but and they also have all those printed in smaller trade paperbacks.
Okay.
Like cut up into pieces, so you can pick anything you want in them. So it's actually pretty easy to get started with Love and Rockets. Just pick up a book. There's tons of them. I actually got them all digitally too. I think 2 Christmases ago when they went on sale on Amazon for like $2 or $3 a trade paperback. And I was like, you know what? I may as well collect Love and Rockets digitally. So I've got them all in my Kindle app. And there's also a Love and Rockets covers book that's really good, which again I have on the digitally, but I don't have it in real life. But it's cool. It collects all because their covers are terrific. Both of them are very good cover artists. So they're nice to look at like that.
Yeah, I always saw them pop up, but I don't know why I never picked up an issue.
It took me a long time to start picking up the issues too. I think it started in '83. I probably didn't start buying it regularly till '88.
Okay.
Just like Cerebus, it took me a long time to pick up, especially being an indie guy. I mean, it just could be because there were, so many issues. Like Cerebus, when did that start? 77? I probably didn't start picking up Cerebus till like 1990 or something.
Yeah, I don't think I was even aware of Cerebus until 93.
Yeah. Spawn?
Yeah.
Spawn 11?
No, I knew of him. So I did buy Spawn 11, but I knew of the creature. I knew of him, and I knew what he looked like before he looked like he did in Spawn 11. I remember the early Aardvark Conan look that he had before the cartoony look that he had in Spawn. Like he wasn't polished yet, but I do recall him being around, but I didn't buy those. And with the Love and Rocket stuff, I don't think I was aware of that until 89 or 90. But I didn't pick up that stuff because the indie stuff that I picked up in my early days in the 80s were mostly the knockoffs of Ninja Turtles. Everyone kind of doing their own version of Ninja Turtles. And that was as far as indie as I went until probably the later 90s.
That just reminded me, mentioning Spawn. I was just cataloging my comics in my database and realized I just hit 50 issues of Spawn. I was like, wow, how did I get 50 issues of Spawn in my collection? Because I used to never buy Spawn.
Right.
But since it's the last, I bought an issue here or there, so I probably had 5 or 6 issues. But then I bought the Eric Larson's Todd McFarlane Spawns. And of course, I've been buying it since about, 303 or 304, since it's the last of the $3 comics Spawns.
Right.
So I'm like, wow, I've got 50 issues of Spawn. That snuck up on me.
Wow.
I wouldn't have guessed that. But I do. All right, we should wrap it up now.
All right.
Been talking for a good long time.
It flies by. It flies by. It seems like only 20 minutes or so.
All righty. So everyone have a good week out there. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.